welcome to the Echo Tips Podcast. In this week's episode, we're going to be talking about a piece of hardware we've never discussed, I don't believe, and that is called the Fire TV Cube, combined with a web camera that allows you to have Zoom meetings on your TV with those two devices. But before we get into that in any sort of detail, we're going to go to a brief message about our podcast, and then we'll be right back. This episode is brought to you by New Vision at Goodwill Industries of the Valleys, and also made possible in part by a grant from the Virginia Board for the Blind and Vision Impaired. New Vision is a program of Goodwill that provides information services and assistive technology training to individuals with visual impairments. Goodwill Industries of the Valleys is a nonprofit organization serving Central, Southwest, and Southside Virginia. Goodwill's mission is to empower individuals, strengthen families, and inspire communities. These shows are provided for educational purposes. This podcast may not be retransmitted, sold, or reproduced without written permission from New Vision. Hello, welcome back to the Echo Tips Podcast. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to be talking about Zoom meetings on your Fire TV Cube. What is a Fire TV Cube? And it feels like Star Trek in here because we're like doing video conferencing with just these simple devices. So let me stop that here with our A-lady here. Stop.
Goodbye, Captain. See you soon.
Okay. So anyway, if you ever want to have that sound effect in the background, you just say, "Hey, lady, open up Star Trek bridge sounds." Anyway. All right. So I'd like to welcome our new listeners today to the podcast. My name is David Ward. I'm an assistive technology instructor with the New Vision program at Goodwill. At the tail end of the episode, I'll mention ways you can find out more about me and reach out with thoughts and suggestions for future episodes. For our returning listeners, we'd like to welcome you back as well. And because of both of you, we're roughly at close to 100,000 listens. We're just right over, real close at this point, and slightly under 200 episodes. So it's great to have that support. And please tell your friends about us, or if you think this episode might help someone you know. Okay, so today, we're not really going to have too much of really anything in the way of a demo, because I couldn't really figure out a way to do that would be really any different than our past episode dealing with Zoom meetings. So, by all means, go back and listen to that episode, and you'll get some of the basic information. But really, we're talking about a new set of hardware, and hardware is a physical item, so I can't really tell you much more about it than a description here on the podcast, and it's known as the Fire TV Cube. Now, before I get into this, what is the usefulness of this device with a webcam and using it for Zoom meetings? Well, you may have a family member or somebody who isn't very technically savvy, but you would like them to join Zoom meetings. Maybe it could be for a family gathering on Zoom. It could be for some sort of classes that you'd like them to take. Or it could be for anything, it could be some sort of religious meetings or the like. So there might be a plethora of reasons, or maybe just want them to be able to see the grandkids and things like that. So really, this device, hardware, makes that super simple. So what is a Fire TV Cube? Well, it's part of a series of products that Amazon's been making, often, revising every year. And they're really designed towards television, towards Netflix, towards watching movies on Amazon, and the like. Now, you may be familiar with the ability to watch some TV shows and different things, even ones that are developed by Amazon themselves, via a Amazon Echo Show device with a screen, and that's truly possible. So really, in a way, this is kind of thinking in that respect, but it's a piece of equipment that you can use to augment any one of your televisions. So the traditional Fire TV stick, the stick implies kind of like a giant stick of gum, a giant thing that you just plug into the back of an HDMI port on the back of your TV, and then it will give you this feature to interact with a remote control, much like an Echo remote, and navigate Netflix and all that stuff. You would even have voice command capability through the remote control. It has a little microphone built in the top. Well, the Fire TV Cube is kind of that taken and put on steroids. It's a big, well, I don't know if it's a really big cube. It's like 4 to 5 inches on the side, cubish, very black device. It has the little light panel on the front that goes back and forth, looks like something off a Knight Rider. And anyway, it has a microphone array in it. So it's basically you take the Fire TV stick and you combined it with its own Amazon Echo or an Amazon Echo Dot maybe. So it has the built-in features of the A-Lady that's also connected with the Fire TV Cube. So you just don't have to use the remote. You can actually do it hands-free without the remote control. A lot of things. Post-production note. I wanted to mention the cost of the Fire TV Cube, even though it's a 2019 model, Ultra HD, which means it can do up to 4K. It's an older model. It's the second gen you would need to have for this functionality. That's a requirement. But anyway, it right now is on sale for, I think, like 40% off for $69. And this 720p Logitech HD camera was about $28. So under like $110, we got this whole thing pretty much accomplished. And of course, the last thing is you will need that micro USB adapter to USB 2.0, but that's only a few dollars. So basically, super cheap. Just thought I'd mention there the cost, since I figured some people would want to know. Back to the show. Now, the advantages of this cube over any of the other Fire TVs is it also has, I guess, some better hardware, even though this is a much older model from 2019 is when it was announced. But most importantly, it has a USB port on the back. Now, this USB port was enabled during the pandemic to allow you to connect a certain series of compatible Logitech and other compatible web cameras that allow for video conferencing. And there's certain standards you can look up on that if you'd like to look about it. All you need to do is Google Zoom and Fire TV Cube. Basically, Zoom meetings on Fire TV Cube. And you'll come up on Zoom's website with a set of standards for the type of cameras that would work. I'm pretty comfortable with the Logitech brand, and that's what I've used during the last series of the pandemic, pretty much. They were hard to come by early in the pandemic. And I got myself a pretty nice high-resolution Logitech C920, I believe. A very popular one used by podcasters. But for this case, I just got a simple C310, and it's a 720p camera. And you need to get a little adapter, because it's a typical USB-A connector, an adapter to plug it into the back of the Fire TV Cube. And on the back of the Fire TV Cube, you basically have 3 ports. You have this micro USB, and then you have this thing that looks like a headphone jack port, which is designed for an infrared blaster to control older TVs. Probably won't need that if you have a relatively modern TV. And then the last thing is the HDMI. Oh, and I left out, there's of course the power port. Okay, so the one we're going to focus on is the USB port. So with this little adapter, you get a micro USB to standard USB 2.0 adapter. That way you can plug the webcam right into the Fire TV Cube. Now, once I got it all up and going, and I went to the App Store on the Fire Cube on the TV with using the remote, I found it pretty easy to install the Zoom app. And right from the get-go, I had to do some allowing stuff to authorize the Fire TV to access the camera. And then I was pretty much off to the races. I was able to do a test meeting. Now, just to clarify, you will get pop-ups that tell you what to do, but just in case you need it here emphasized, you would go into Settings, you would go to Apps, you would go to Managed Apps, you would go to the bottom of the list because it's alphabetized to Z, Zoom, and you would want to make sure that you see that the microphone, camera, and I think it's some sort of storage are all enabled. Now, you want every single one of those enabled and authorized to be used. And it's much like on a smartphone where you might use an app for the first time and ask, can I use the camera? Can I use your location services? You know, it's that kind of principle for privacy. So you want to enable those features. Otherwise, the Zoom app can't see the camera. Now, I did discover to save y'all some trouble, that if you don't see the microphone in there, you're way behind on your updates. So the Fire TV Cube that apparently I got has been sitting on a shelf probably ever since 2019 in a warehouse somewhere. So it had close to half a dozen probably updates it needed to do. So bear that in mind. Now, if you just let it do it at its own leisure, have it plugged in for probably 3 or 4, maybe 5 days or a week, it will slowly do it itself over that period of time, undoubtedly. But I didn't have time for that, and I was trying to set this up for somebody, an elderly individual, that would like to see Zoom meetings on for religious gatherings on her big TV, which is that's the unique feature this really kind of gives you without having to be a computer wizard. So we set that up for her, and if you need to do the updates, what you do is also go into settings. You want to go down to My Device. It's going to have a lot of technical information in there about the software and device. You want to go to About, I believe, and then you want to arrow down to Check for Updates or Install Update. And you'll probably need to do that several different times. It may prompt you for a reboot, or you may want to reboot it and then go back into that menu and check for updates again. Like I said, I had to do that about 6 times before I even saw the microphone option for the Zoom meeting in there. And that was kind of a telltale sign that the Fire TV Cube was way out of date. And as you move up through that update cycle, you will start to notice that some of the menu layouts and stuff change the way they look. But the description I just gave you still will work. They're just kind of laid out a little differently when you go back into the settings panel. After all that's said and done, you pretty much go into the Zoom app. It will ask you an additional question about allowing the camera. You can do a test meeting from right there, and you can goof around. Now, if you look at the online directions, it recommends, because I think what it's doing is using the default microphone on the Echo, which makes sense because there's a wonderful microphone array on the front of the device. That also is a good reminder that the front of the Cube that has the light that goes back and forth like Knight Rider, woo, 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 right, back and forth, whoosh, is also where the microphone array is. So you want that pointing out towards wherever the people in the room are going to be. You also want that to be at least, I think it's between 1 foot and 2 feet, probably on the better side of 2 feet, away from any speakers or sound bar on the TV where the audio might be coming out. Now, by default, I think I set mine to have the audio come out of the Cube and it also to act as a microphone. And that was mostly just for my testing capability. But after that, I think you can switch the speakers to come over to the TV and you get a much larger, maybe perhaps sound. And with the elderly individual I was setting this up for, that would probably be best as well if there's any kind of hearing impairment, as well as maybe wanting a bigger picture. Okay, so that basically sums all of that up. I will mention, however, another problem I ran into after I set this up and I gave it to somebody else is they made the mistake of grabbing a little dongle out of the box that's designed to go into that same USB port and do an Ethernet cable. So you can hardline it into the internet. And on that same little dongle, it also has a port replicator for another USB micro port. So you would think that that dongle would act basically as a hub of sorts, both for Ethernet and for the USB. And I should be able to plug that camera in with the adapter into that dongle if I did need to hardwire it in. But in my initial experience today, that did not work. I came back, I had done it prior to this using no dongle. It worked completely fine. And then we came back, they had plugged in the dongle and then plugged the camera into the dongle. That didn't work at all. It was no bueno. So take the dongle out of the sequence there and then plug it directly in. Now, what does that mean if you do need to do some sort of hardware Ethernet? Obviously, you'd want that for stability of Zoom meetings, if at all possible, I would think. I really don't know offhand. You might want to Google the problem online. My initial thinking is you might want to just buy a real legit micro USB like hub converter of some kind, or if you have that converter you already got, just a legit Type A USB 2.0 hub. It just needs like two ports, honestly. And then you could plug your camera into one and then plug this dongle into the other that has the Ethernet adapter. And that theoretically should work. But like I said, it was a little surprising to me that it caused a problem at all. But I immediately recognized that that might be why the camera's not being seen, because it worked fine for me previous to that when I hadn't used that dongle. Okay, so I think that basically does it. The menus in Zoom are real easy to arrow around to log into an account. Even just use a test account. You don't need to have an account set up in there in order to log into a Zoom meeting. You can just type in the digits. Oh, and lastly, the greatest thing about this, especially for maybe a not so technical savvy or maybe an elderly person that just wants the thing to work, is because it has the Echo functionality built in there, and the Echo can connect to your cloud calendars like a Gmail calendar, an iCloud calendar, or a Microsoft calendar, and it's probably got other options now too. You could go in on their calendar, assuming it's been connected, and you can set up, okay, say they have Zoom meetings every Tuesday night for a diabetes workshop, or they have a religious gathering on Sundays. You could go in there and on the calendar, paste in those Zoom credentials, give it a name, say this is, a religious meeting, and then under the section for more information about this calendar event or notes, paste in the Zoom credentials, the link and all of that stuff. And then pretty much you can go over to your Echo, or I should say your Fire TV Cube from then on, and they can just say, hey, A-Lady, join my Zoom meeting, as you might have seen me demonstrate earlier in this podcast with things. And boom, shakalaka, there you are. And it would just connect. No need to type in a passcode or anything like that. Okay, well, that will bring this episode to a close. It's time to turn on the ears on your Echo, which I guess you didn't really have any need to shut off today. Practice some of the many things that you've learned. I'm David Ward for the New Vision program. If you'd like to reach out for more ideas and thoughts, you can do so on Facebook or on Twitter at Goodwill Industries of the Valleys, and just reach out to us with more info. And you can even reach out to info@goodwillvalleys.com if you'd like to as well. And we'd love to hear your feedback about possible future episodes, questions. We'd love to take audience questions. If you'd like to even send an audio question into the podcast, you can do that on anchor.fm. Well, I'm David Ward for the New Vision program, and we thank you for listening.
Thanks, Dave. Let me tell you a bit more. Let me put on my official sounding voice. Ahem. This episode is brought to you by New Vision at Goodwill Industries of the Valleys, and also made possible in part by a grant from the Virginia Board for the Blind and Vision Impaired. New Vision is a program of Goodwill that provides information services and assistive technology training to individuals with visual impairments. Goodwill Industries of the Valleys is a nonprofit organization serving Central, Southwest, and Southside Virginia. Goodwill's mission is to empower individuals, strengthen families, and inspire communities. These shows are provided for educational purposes. This podcast may not be retransmitted, sold, or reproduced without written permission from New Vision. Phew! Thanks for listening.